Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's good to see some faces I haven't seen in a couple weeks. So my name is Mandy Fales-Williams. I am a veterinary pathologist. I'm an anatomic pathologist, so that means I read biopsies and I do necropsies. This is my best friend, Mr. Microscope. We do a lot of things together. Let's see, how did I end up coming to Iowa State? I am actually a Missouri graduate from 1995, which means I did not go to vet school in this century, which pretty much discounts me from a lot of opinions. But I came, so I married a classmate. So rule of thumb, don't date a classmate. If you do, well, generally speaking, don't date a classmate. But anyway, I married a classmate, and when we were trying to figure out what to do after graduation, what made the most sense was for me to apply directly for a path residency rather than us trying to find jobs and then quitting jobs and trying to find more jobs. And lo and behold, I ended up coming to Iowa State for a residency. And the plan was that we were going to do a residency and I'd do my PhD here, and then we'd be off to whatever our next adventure was. And that was in 1995. And I would like to think that we have pretty exacting standards. We have not found another place that we'd rather live than Ames, Iowa. We like the location. We like that it's safe. Some might call it boring, but it is safe, and it's very population not dense right now, which is a plus. It has a lot of really great things to offer. It has a lot of cultural aspects that are easy to get to on a routine basis. Let's see, what do I like to do? I like to teach students. I like to read slides and help clinicians. I like to interact with veterinarians at any stage in their career. When I'm not doing those things, I like to ride horses. So I started off as a horse person, and I'm still a horse person. What I have found to be a little bit more convenient to my schedule is ballet, which is funny. But anyway, my kids dance, and they have dragged me into doing ballet. And as I left the house, my son was actually doing his ballet class by Zoom in our bedroom, because that's where the largest area of hardwood floor is. So that's our new normal, is that he's doing about, I don't know, 15 hours a week of ballet class in my bedroom. Who knew? That's just what we do now. So so that's me. I'm happy to answer any other questions as they come on, but I'll let the next person introduce himself.
Great. Dr. Musser, do you want to go next?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm Dr. Musser, or Meg Musser. I'm one of the faculty oncologists here at Iowa State. I joined about 3 years ago. So I went into private practice or private specialty practice for 3 years following my residency, and then got wooed back to academia by a very good friend of mine who's also my colleague here at Iowa State. Iowa State worked out really well for me and my family. I don't know if you can see, there's a whiteboard on the wall behind me, which is filled with all sorts of math business. My husband is a math professor here, and so it worked out really nicely for both of us to come to Iowa State. We also really like Ames. There's a lot to do here, although you're out in the middle of the cornfields and the Midwest. It is really safe, as Dr. Fales-Williams said. I feel really safe when I go out running by myself on the trails and in the parks that are nearby. So I really enjoy doing that. There's also a lot of really good restaurants in Ames. So Dr. Ward and I enjoy brunching quite frequently. So you'll see a group of us out doing that as often as possible, and less frequently now. But that's kind of how I ended up at Iowa State and what I enjoy doing here.
Great. Thank you. Dr. Ward, do you want to take it away?
Absolutely. My name is Jessica Ward, and I am a cardiologist at Iowa State. I came to Iowa State in 2015, right straight from my residency, which was at NC State. So I went to vet school at North Carolina State, then did my internship at Ohio State, back to North Carolina State for residency. And my significant other is also a veterinarian. He's a veterinary internist, was not a classmate, but was a resident mate. So you see the trend. And we were both looking for faculty positions, and Iowa State was the right fit for us. some things that I like to do in Ames. I also do ballet. So Dr. Fales Williams and I do ballet together, are sometimes in the same class and have been doing Zoom classes recently. And then as everyone's kind of mentioned about the area and the landscape, while there are a lot of cornfields, let me see if I can show you with using my other camera out my window. So we actually live out in the country a bit, and so we have a little forest around our property, and we do a lot of gardening, so we're pretty much set for the apocalypse. And that's kind of become one of our hobbies, is growing our own food, canning our own food. And in case you happen to see an interloper come in during this panel, this is Otto, one of our 3 cats, and he decided he wanted to join me for the panel discussion today to welcome all of you.
Thank you. Erica, can you take it away?
I just learned how to unmute myself, but I'm Erica. I'm a VM1 or a first year vet student. I'm originally from Southern California. I did my undergrad in Utah and I played volleyball in my undergrad. So I was a student athlete, which is a little bit different from a lot of other students that are here. And then I came to Iowa just because I have a lot of family here in the Midwest. My immediate family is all still in Southern California. But I came out to Iowa State just because there were a lot of things that the school had to offer. One, I don't know if a lot of you know, but Iowa State is the oldest vet school in the country, so I thought that was something that was really cool. A lot of our faculty, like more than half of them, are board certified, so I thought that was really awesome because we get to, although our classes are, you know, kind of bigger, we still get to work with them pretty intimately in lab settings, or if you have questions after class, they're really awesome and with meeting with you and stuff like that. So things that I like to do here, like I said, I'm from Utah, so I'm used to hiking in the mountains here in Iowa. There's not very many mountains, but still a lot of trails and things for you to go and walk around and be outside. The weather's gotten a lot nicer here recently, so I've been going on a lot of walks trying to get out of the apartment a little bit, break some studying and things like that. So but yeah, Ames has a lot to offer. It is bigger than the town where I did my undergrad in, so that's that's a positive. But yeah, like the professors were saying, you know, it is a really safe place to live. Everyone here is really awesome and super nice and always willing to help you with anything that you need. So it's been a great place to transition to and a really awesome community to be in.
Great. Okay, Mackenzie, do you want to go next?
All right, can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. I'm Mackenzie. I'm a BM3, so 3rd year, getting ready to start clinics here shortly, hopefully. I'm from Des Moines, grew up here, went to Iowa State for undergrad, majored in animal science. I dabbled in a variety of, you know, species, did some pig work, and now I'm here settling on small animal and specifically ER medicine. So the reason I chose Iowa State, I mean, growing up here, all of my vets from back home are Iowa State grads, and they are amazing. I now work in an emergency clinic in Des Moines, and most of them are Iowa State grads. And, you know, I feel so confident in the education that I'm getting here because I see how good of doctors they are. I also chose Iowa State because it is very safe. My parents are very safety precautious people, so they felt very comfortable with me going here. I live in one of the trailer parks next to the vet school, and so I actually go on walks late at night and don't feel unsafe, and that's kind of my study break that I like to use. I think that's it.
Great. Okay, thank you. Bianca.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So hi, I'm Bianca. I'm a 2nd year student currently trying to get used to all this online class stuff. Originally, I'm from Orlando, Florida. I did my undergrad at the University of Central Florida and also got a master's there as well. I have a little bit more of, I guess not super untraditional, but I have a more, I guess, a less traditional route than everybody else. So I didn't get into vet school the first time I applied, so I'm just gonna say that right off the bat. It's normal if you don't get in the first time. A lot of people don't. The reason I chose Iowa State was because 1, I got in, and 2, I've just heard endless good things about the school, about the professors. Everyone's pretty much hit the nail on the head with how safe it is here in Ames. I jumped in with both feet. I had never been to Ames or Iowa or the Midwest before I even started school. I just kind of drove up here and started living here. So that was interesting. My interest is small animal medicine. I'm not sure yet if I want to specialize. I'm going more towards general practice right now. I think everyone else pretty much summed up things really well. There's a lot of fresh air here in Ames. Because I did come from Orlando, it's a very big city. My undergrad alone was 60,000 plus students. So getting used to being in a smaller town was definitely challenging, and being away from family and my parents, but you get used to it. And there's enough people here to where you don't feel isolated, and everyone's really welcoming. It's really easy to make friends. Everybody's so nice, which if you're from a big city like I am, is not very common to find nice people. So I think that's it for me. Everyone else pretty much summed up things really well. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. And last but not least, Kieran, you're up.
All right, hopefully everyone can hear this all right. My name is Kieran. I'm a current VM2, just like Bianca. And I am interested in mixed animal medicine, predominantly large animal. I grew up in Eastern Iowa and did my undergrad at the University of Iowa in biology. Some may call it the wrong side of Iowa, but depends on who you ask. And so veterinary medicine, kind of interest in it, didn't come to me until fairly late in undergrad. Probably about my sophomore or junior year, I became more interested in it. I came in as an engineer, quickly found out that was not for me, and then switched to biology, and then kind of like muddled around in that a little bit, trying to see what all I could do with that, and then kind of landed on veterinary medicine. Visited Iowa State, was very impressed with the facilities and everything else, and decided that was kind of the path for me. As far as what I like to do around Ames, I live in the trailer park right next to Ames too. So if anyone has any questions about that, obviously you can shoot those my way as well. But I usually like to, go out walking. Recently adopted a greyhound, so I like to go out and walk a fair bit. Go work out at one of the rec centers at Iowa State, or if can't get outside, usually just stay in and cook or do something like that. So.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you, guys. The first question kind of got asked a couple of different times, but from Megan, who's one of our students on the call or on the webinar, sorry. And maybe Erica, if we can start with you, what are some of the school supplies that helped you most during your first year? And then I would kind of open it up to any of the years. So what are the kind of your key school supplies? And then we'll just kind of, if you want to start, then we'll just open it up to anybody who wants to chime in, even faculty. If you're like, yes, this is what students need to survive, vet school, please chime in too. So Erica, what about school supplies?
Yeah, so I know everyone is a little bit different with how they study, how they take notes and things like that. It's really nice because the school, you do get an issued computer. I don't know, it's some sort of PC, but it has a touch screen, which is really nice. So in class and when professors are lecturing, you can draw on the screen. They have pictures of things on there, which is really nice. And you can, type your notes, highlight things. So that's really helpful for me. But outside of using my laptop for studying, I do have separate notebooks for all my classes. There are some classes where I will rewrite my notes. There's other classes where I found that that's super time consuming, so I'll type up outlines and things like that. Classes where you're looking at like histology slides or especially anatomy, there are pictures that the professors provide for you, so you can kind of practice looking at them and identifying different structures and things like that. So that's really helped me. One thing that I would recommend though for first years is for anatomy class or anatomy lab, I guess, is make sure you buy a lot of gloves because you're gonna go through those like crazy. Even in our second semester now with a lot of our labs that we're in, we are required to wear gloves. So make sure you have a lot of those stocked up.
Great. Anybody else want to chime in? Mackenzie, you're on mute still.
Okay, sorry guys. I've never done Zoom before in a meeting like this. So, in regards to textbooks, I bought all of them my first year. Didn't open the majority of them. So that's up to you. If this is the way you learn, books are definitely a good investment. The library does have all of the textbooks that you would need just in case. So if you just wanted like one picture out of one book, you can go make a copy. They'll let you look at the books, you know, whenever you're free, whenever you want to. So it's kind of up to you, but I personally didn't end up using any of I used 3 books my first year, and one of them I kept for my 3rd year. So that's definitely something to take into consideration. I would ask on like the ISU CBM buy sell page, ask your upperclassmen like, hey, what books do you recommend using? Like, what did you buy? What would you not recommend getting?
Can I just chime in here really quick?
Mm-hmm.
So I will say that in addition to required textbooks, a lot of professors will provide class notes, which is in addition to or even in place of the textbook sometimes. And our professors are all really good about including basically everything we need to know in their lectures. We don't really, very, very, very rarely get tested on information that's not in our lecture materials. So if there is an option to get the lecture notes either through the school, or sometimes the professors will even upload them onto Canvas, which is our online platform, then do that as well. They do it for us. It's their material. It also saves us a lot of money from having to buy the textbooks. So that's also an option a lot of times.
Great. Okay, so I'll just kind of awkwardly pause if anybody needs to, or if anybody's chiming in. So if there are awkward pauses, it's just to give you guys an opportunity to chat. Next question is a little bit more on the school life, and I think that it kind of transitions into, you know, work life kind of balance here. So what have you all found helpful to kind of balance vet school and, you know, mental health, wellness, all of that kind of stuff? So.
All right, I guess I'll kind of kick it off here. At least me personally, I found starting off, it is very easy to kind of get sucked into it saying, oh, I need to, you know, study basically 24/7. But you have to tell yourself that you don't. Probably the 2 most important things are make sure you get a full night's sleep every night. Don't be up until 2 or 3 a.m. studying for an exam the next day. You're just going to wear yourself out that way. And then another thing is at least 1 day a week, take either all or most of the day off. You'll kind of thank yourself for that. It's just a good way to kind of reset. I know there have been a bunch of times where, you know, have a bunch of exams coming up and I'm, you know, stressing about having to study for all of them. Then you kind of just take half a day to yourself to kind of reset, and then you're back into it, you know, with kind of more energy and motivation than you had going into it. So those would kind of be my 2 biggest tips. And, you know, utilize your classmates and peers, because chances are if you're stressed about something, everyone else is going to be stressed about something. So that's kind of a good outlet for you guys. Can all maybe, hey, we should take this day off, go do something, things like that.
For me, like I said, I work in a clinic in Des Moines, and that for me is kind of a release, not only just to get out of Ames, you know, go south and see new things that I don't see every day, but I get to apply what I've learned in class to like real life clinical experience. You know, we have a case come in, and then I get to kind of do my own triaging, diagnosing while I listen to the doctor and what they say. And I only work once a week, like during the school week, and then a couple weekends a month where I saw a question about working. But I think for me, just being with new people in a new area, that's enough of a break for me just to reset for the rest of the week. So I usually work on Wednesdays to kind of finish the week out with a new energy.
Kind of what, touching on what Kieran said, I kind of made a schedule for myself. So I do make sure I have time off. Like on Saturdays, every Saturday, I'll get up in the morning, I'll go work out, come home, study. And then once it's dinner time, after that, I kind of just like give myself the night off. But make sure you have a day where you know that you'll have time to be able to take off, kind of be away from school, do things that you like to do, whether it be reading or exercising or whatever. But just making sure you kind of fit that into your schedule as well, because our schedules are really, really chaotic. But don't forget the things that also make you happy outside of that med.
Great. Okay, so can you guys talk about, and I think actually if we can have a faculty member to start this one off, can you talk a little bit about faculty mentoring and how maybe that faculty-student relationship looks here at Iowa State?
I'm happy to jump in on this one now that I'm unmuted. The official faculty mentorship scenario is that every first year is paired with a faculty contact or faculty mentor that is chosen on the basis of generally your interest area, trying to pair small animal interest with a small animal faculty. And that person meets with you during orientation and kind of helps you get set up at that school. And that mentorship relationship can really look however you want it to look. Over the years now, I have about 16 mentees. I usually have 4 per year. Some of them contact me multiple times per semester, ask my advice about electives, ask my advice about summer programs, and asked for letters of recommendation for internships and jobs. Others didn't contact me again after that first meeting, which is fine. It's really up to each individual person. Other ways you get involved with faculty mentors are through clubs and organizations, if a faculty member is a faculty advisor for that club. I've also had students approach me and just say, I have an interest in cardiology. Do you have any research projects going on? Can I shadow with you? So there can be formal and informal mentorship, but as a lot of the students have already mentioned, I tend to think that the faculty here are very open and very willing to give their time and expertise to students, whether it's within or outside of those formal faculty mentorship relationships.
So I might follow up on that just to say I agree with Dr. Ward's description of that. We are assigned mentees, and then maybe later on mentees might come to you to say, you know, I've discovered that I really like pathology, or I've discovered that I really like the thing that you happen to teach. And so that's always a great thing. I guess I would just state that all of the faculty members that are here, being in academia is not the highest paying job you can do. If you have specialized just for the sake of money, or maybe schedule or lack of committee meetings, it might be a easier or better paying job out in a private sector area, and that's fine. That's, you know, that's a huge need as well. But I think generally speaking, all the faculty here in the building are here because they want to help shape the future of veterinary medicine. And you can't do that without mentoring students. So don't ever be afraid to come up to a professor and say, you know, I want to know more about what you do. I want to know more about whatever your question might be, because that's why we're here. There's other places we could be, but we all made the choice to be here. And I love answering student questions. I'll be real honest, one of the hardest things right now with what's going on is that I don't get to see students, and that's been just hard. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone, and this is nice because at least I get to see faces again.
Great, thank you. From the student perspective, how have you kind of utilized your mentors? How do you connect with faculty members? What does it look like from the student perspective?
For me, I was kind of one of the students that I had met with my faculty mentor during orientation and then kind of never talked to them again. So it was kind of one of those things where I got paired up. I think it was like my third or fourth interest on my list. So didn't really end up working at it. But I was interested in learning about kind of other fields or specialties within veterinary medicine. Specifically for me, I was kind of like, well, I don't hear a whole lot about poultry, so let's check that out. So then I reach out to both of the poultry extension vets, and now occasionally they'll call me up and say, hey, I'm going to visit this turkey barn. Do you want to come with? So things like that can be really valuable. One of them is a reference on my resume, things like that. And as well, from within the CVM, kind of outside of it as well. So with clubs and organizations, you have a lot of speakers come in, and that is an awesome time to go up and talk to them, kind of make your presence known. So now I have several kind of professionals within various industries that I can reach out to, say if I hear news about something, say, hey, like, what's this about? What's your opinion on it? Or kind of ask them various questions as they come up. So it's kind of, you get out what you put into it. And so you really kind of have to have that initiative to go forward and reach out to them yourself. A lot of times they're not going to a lot of times they're not going to say, hey, how's it going? Reach out. You have to do that yourself. So.
To follow up on what Kieran said, I actually never even met my advisor at orientation because he wasn't there when orientation happened. And I am still kind of that student that just never really reached out to him. And that's okay. Like the faculty said, I know that he's there if I do need to reach out to him, especially going into second and third year. Since he is one of the dermatologists, it's more of a specialized area that he's in. But I will say that in undergrad, I was never the type of person to go up to professor and start talking to them. I just felt that to be really intimidating, especially because my classes were so large in my undergrad. It was a little harder to make that relationship with the professors. But here they're all so inviting, and I feel like I could go up to any one of them and just start a conversation. I feel like that's very easy to do, especially since, we all have somewhat similar personalities because we're all interested in this field. A lot of us have very quirky personalities, and that's really fun to get to know everybody. So if you're one of those people that in undergrad, you just were afraid to death to talk to a professor, because I was like that, it is a completely different vibe here. So it should be much easier to find somebody that you can really trust and reach out to.
Great, fantastic. So the last session that we participated in was about financial aid and scholarships and all of that kind of good stuff. And so we do have some questions from students regarding kind of your financial life at VetMed. So can you, any of you, talk a little bit about budgeting and maybe things that you do to kind of save during college, so or during vet school, so whether it's, selling that car and just taking the bus, or, whatever it is. Can you talk a little bit about what does it look like to kind of practically live at Iowa State?
So I think for me, it's very different for everybody. But I purchased a trailer and then had a roommate. And so basically, yes, you have to pay up front for that trailer or mortgage or however you want to go about doing that. But my roommate paid for my lot rent, half my utilities, and I had a little bit money left over from, rent that I could put towards insurance and things like that. So besides purchasing the trailer, I'm pretty much living just half my utilities at the moment. And that depends on, every person. But that for me was the smartest way to save money, as opposed to an apartment, where I did the math and I would spend $450 a month at this apartment and have nothing to sell at the end. Whereas I'm going to get hopefully almost what I bought my trailer for, when I go to sell it. So that for me was my way of being financially intelligent on, just living. I also donate plasma, which is not everybody's cup of tea, but for me, it's $70 a week if you go twice a week. With promotions every once in a while, they give you more. And that's my grocery money that goes towards my utilities, so there are definitely ways to have enough of an income kind of to be pretty well balanced with what you're bringing in and what you're spending.
So I have kind of a similar story. I actually do live in an apartment currently and have been since I started at Iowa State. However, my husband and I just bought a trailer that we'll be moving into for third and fourth year because doing the math, it is just more financially feasible for us. Although an apartment is nice, everything's pretty much included. It just, for our financial situation, just happened to work out better. And I almost wish I had done it sooner. Just the timing worked out this way. But I will say, we have a Sam's Club in Ames. There's actually a lot of things in Ames that I didn't expect to be here when I moved. So we have a Sam's Club membership. And although you do have to pay, I think it's yearly, it's worth it if you go pretty frequently, and things are cheaper even though you buy them in bulk. But if you have a roommate, you can, split that membership and get things for the both of you. Gas at Sam's is also relatively cheap compared to the other gas stations. So that's a plus as well. It just little things like just knowing you can't, go out to eat every day. Obviously, depending on your financial situation, I had to learn how to cook when I got here and do all my own stuff. So although that I will say has been very fun, but there's just little things that you'll find out for yourself once you do get here and are living on your own if you're not already. You'll just have to find what works for you and kind of what you can not do to save some money. Look for there's plenty of small jobs around the vet school too that students can get involved in, and sometimes you do have to seek those out yourself, but it does give you a little bit more spending money. Like for example, I work down in the Hills Distribution Center, which is the Hills Pet Nutrition VIP market for faculty and students and staff. So that is another way you can save money if you have pets. Sign up for the feeding programs. There's several at the school. You get very much discounted values of your food compared to what you would get at a vet clinic or something like that. So just kind of be on the lookout for those little money savers.
As far as budgeting, kind of outside of living expenses, whether it be trailer or apartment, kind of what you're spending on things like groceries, utilities, things like that every month. For myself, I don't like to keep it very strict, like here's an Excel sheet, here's exactly what I'm spending every week. I go more on a month or semester basis. So kind of the first semester was like, kind of a test, if you will. So I would note how much money I spent kind of during the first semester of being here and say, okay, that was a little much, like I could have, cut back on certain places. And then kind of the next semester kind of put those adjustments into place and then kind of use that as, all right, this is how much money I'm going to need per semester. And then obviously have kind of, allow yourself a little bit of leeway in case, emergencies or accidents do happen. So things like that, just be prepared for.
Great. And then I wonder for our faculty members, so you made it through vet school, you paid for vet school somehow, right? What would be your advice to current students that, you maybe wish you knew about kind of saving costs in vet school and maybe a little bit about what paying off student loans looks like?
I totally wish I'd gone to a vet school that allowed me to buy a trailer and sell it back at the end. I think that's an awesome thing. I want to make sure everyone's aware, you may have talked about this in your financial aid panel, but aware of the concept of income-based repayment and public service loan forgiveness, because that essentially is how I'm paying off my student loans. Income-based repayment means essentially that rather than having a fixed amount that you pay based on how much you borrowed, they take into account how much you're making. So for someone like me, who after vet school went to an internship that paid less than $30,000 a year, and then a residency that paid $30,000 a year for 3 more years, that was definitely a financial hit. It pays off in the end when you're a specialist for sure. But during that time period, the government calculated what my payment needed to be. And for my internship, it was $0. So I paid nothing on my loans during my internship, but that still counted as qualifying payments toward the overall total number that you have to make for the loans to be forgiven. If you do straight income-based repayment for the entire time, I think it's 25 years, and then any balance at the end is forgiven. So it just gives you more flexibility, especially if you want to choose a career that is not as high paying and you want to make sure that you're going to be supported through that. Public service loan forgiveness is a special variant of income-based repayment, where if you make 10 years worth of payments in that vein and you work for either a government, which includes state government and academia, or nonprofits, at the end of 10 years, any balance is forgiven. So I'm hoping the federal government continues with this program and that there's still money for that at the end, but I've been working in academia since I graduated. So that is how the route that I have chosen.
Great, thank you. So we do have a question that's pretty straightforward, but maybe Erica, you can tackle this one first, and then anybody else can jump in. What's the dress code like? You know, typical day. What do students like have to think about as far as dress code?
Yeah. So I have a lot of friends that go to vet schools that don't have dress code. So Iowa State is a little unique in that way that we do have one. It is in place by the students, and everyone really complies by it. So every day besides Thursdays, we're required to wear basically anything that you want that's not like leggings or like exercise clothes, things like that. Normally I'll wear like jeans and a shirt, like a sweatshirt, because it is really cold in the vet school, so make sure you bring a jacket. But on Thursdays, I call it our fancy day. So it's like our dress up day where you have to wear basically business attire, make yourself look professional. It's just in place so that when we are when we graduate and we're out in the field and things like that, that we're used to presenting ourselves in that kind of way. A lot of people wear like khakis and polos, like that's totally acceptable. I wear dress pants and blazers, things like that. So it is a little unique to wear on Thursdays. It is our fancy day, so you do have to dress up a little bit more, but Monday through Wednesday and Friday is kind of free game, besides kind of what you would wear lounging around your house. So
Gotcha. Okay, Dr. Musser, do you mind talking a little bit about clinical year and what that looks like for students as far as conduct, dress, all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So that Erica's dress code kind of chat also gets you set up for your 4th year. So when you're on clinics, especially in the small animal hospital, you are expected and required to look professional, to wear dress pants, khakis, dresses, closed-toed shoes always, so no stiletto sandals on the clinic floor. So you need to get used to dressing like that and kind of moving around and getting ready for clinics in that way. Certainly for surgeries, you'll change into scrubs and go in and not wear your dress clothes into the operating suites to make sure that you're not taking anything from the outside into those operating suites. And then just in terms of 4th year in general, I don't know how much you guys have talked about this, but you typically go on 2-week rotation. So I'm an oncologist and my rotation is actually an elective, but it's 2 weeks. You can take up to 4 weeks. If you love oncology, we'd love to have you for 4 weeks. And you kind of rotate through those. You'll see our patients, you interact with the public a lot unless we're still on lockdown, and then we'll be doing it by phone, but otherwise we want you to look professional. We want everyone to be kind of buttoned up and ready to go.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we have a question here about clubs. So can you kind of talk about the clubs you're involved in, maybe some of the most popular ones that the vet school has, and then faculty members. I think probably most of you, if not all of you, are advisors for clubs. So if you could kind of chime in on what that looks like and how faculty are involved in clubs, that would be great. So student clubs, does somebody want to take it away?
All right, so there's so many clubs here at Iowa State. Literally, if you wanted to work with, we have fish club, we have reptiles, cows, swine, small animal like dentistry, ER, surgery, everything you could ever want is basically here. Definitely the bigger ones tend to be, we have a business club that's really big, AABP, which is our cow club, ASD, which is swine, and then ER tends to also be pretty large, as well as surgery. I'm president of the ER club, so I'm very biased, unfortunately, towards my club experience, but I honestly think that being involved, I had 7 clubs I was in my first year, and it's only as much involvement as you want. You can just go to lunch meetings that have free food, or you can participate in all the wet labs. You can meet the faculty, get to know, the executive team, join that executive team. So it kind of depends on what you're looking to get out of each club. Personally, I was involved in the business club as well, and we went to Florida for the exec team. Met some of the national leaders for that organization. So there's so many opportunities that you can get from each different club, and I just implore you guys to go with something you're not super comfortable with. Join that fish club, like do something that's out of your realm a little bit, because you never know what you're gonna like. I came in just wanting to be daytime general practitioner, and ER club changed my mind. So definitely give everything a chance.
I'm kind of on the other end where I'm in the smaller clubs that Mackenzie was talking about. I'm in those clubs. So I'm a part of Zoo Club, Avian Club, Fish Club, Reptile Club. So kind of the ones that are a little bit smaller. But those ones are really cool because, our curriculum does touch on those subjects, but in those club meetings, we do get the chance to do wet labs. So last semester we did a turtle shell repair, which was really cool. One of the clinicians from the Minnesota Wildlife Clinic came down and did a presentation on that. And then we also did necropsies, well, not necropsies, but we did physical exams on birds that had passed away, which was really cool, and kind of getting exposed to that. Last semester there was this other doctor that came in who is specifically a sea turtle doctor. So listening to him talk was really, really cool. So it exposes you to a lot of things that aren't really, we don't really dive into depth in our curriculum. So I think if you have a certain interest in that way, definitely join those clubs. There's a lot of opportunities to where you can work with those animals and learn a lot more about things that you don't really know about.
I did see a question about kind of hands-on experience. Clubs are definitely, from the very beginning, first semester, first year, clubs are the way that you can get a lot of hands-on experience through wet labs. And also kind of backing off of what Kenzie and Erica said, that you kind of want to force yourself out of your comfort zone. I know I did that. I really am small animal exclusive. I want to be able to work with some exotics in practice, but I was never interested in fish. I thought they were always gross. And then I went on a trip to, I don't know where in Iowa, with our fish doctor a few months ago and vaccinated fish. So that was really cool. And then I also don't really have an interest in working with large animals. And I did a dehorning wet lab last year here at the ISU dairy farm. So that was also very cool. And I'm really glad I had those experiences. And I'm kind of forcing myself to be exposed to things that I wouldn't want to otherwise. So yeah, hands-on, wet labs, through clubs. There's a lot of opportunity also in our curriculum, but that's a different kind of thread. So definitely if there's something that you or even remotely maybe think it's cool, do it. That's my advice.
And then I did see one question about, is there like an orientation day for the clubs? So when you actually do your orientation day here at Iowa State, we do have Club Fest, which means that there's a variety of clubs that'll be there with their poster boards, and they'll talk to you about each one. And then like the third week of school, every club for the most part will put on like a lunch meeting that's free. You don't have to pay dues for it. And they just kind of talk about what they do as a club and what, you know, you should expect if you want to join that club. And then they'll talk about dues and things like that.
Okay, great. So going kind of off of the hands-on learning, Bianca, I know you touched on that. Can you guys talk a little bit about what hands-on learning looks like in the curriculum? So how do you get hands-on learning?
Well, I don't know if the second and third years, they probably have a lot more to say about this just because I've only done a semester and a half so far. But with that, for hands-on learning in classes, it's really nice because your first semester, you are taking a clinical foundations class. So basically in that class, you learn kind of the basics of doing a physical exam. So they'll break it down every week to different portions, whether it be like a exam, GI exam, or an exam about, you know, how to feel a dog's joints and things like that. And so every week on Thursdays, you actually spend about an hour to 2 hours working with live animals, whether they be cats or dogs, and kind of learning the basics of doing a physical exam. So, but like we were saying before too, with clubs, you do get a lot more hands-on experience there as well. So.
Yeah, I will say also this is what I always tell any student or future student that asks me, that hands-on at Iowa State in the curriculum is very progressive. So you do get a kind of a taste of it your first semester, a first year, learning the basics, learning how to properly restrain and handle an animal with, you know, low stress and fear-free handling. And then as you move forward, second year, you get into your surgery classes. So first semester of second year, you learn the basics of surgery, how to prep for surgery, how to prepare yourself, how to prepare your patient. And then going on from there, you learn the procedures, spay, neuter, and how to actually handle a live patient during surgery. So I will say it's very, very progressive. And you do utilize a lot of what you've learned in other classes. A lot of it overlaps, which is very cool because it kind of, you know, makes things click a lot more. So definitely take advantage of those curriculum classes that you do have hands-on learning, because your instructors are there to help you. And then you can also utilize those experiences in other things like your wet labs or any trips that you might take.
And then just to cover your base for your third year, that's the year that you actually get to start doing surgery. So your first semester, third year, you get to do spays, neuters on cats and dogs, as well as you're responsible for basically caring for these patients for the 4 days, 3 days that they're in the hospital. So that's doing physical exams every 12 hours, giving vaccinations, giving medications that they need, diagnosing, you know, do they have worms, anything weird in their urine, things like that. So you definitely get that hands-on experience and learn how to write proper SOAPs, which are basically like reports on what you found doing your physical exam, things that you want to treat, etc. So you definitely get more hands-on experience your third year. And then for the large animal side, that's when all the fun electives really start. So they get to do palpation, where they go out to the farms. And then I'm not a large animal person, so I don't have all the answers for that, but I do know that they get to go to farms, get to actually touch cows, get to do things with, you know, a variety of species that we don't get to as much here in the hospital until your 4th year. And then the 4th year, you're obviously in the clinics, basically doing everything with every patient that is yours. And that's the most hands-on that you'll get.
I'll point out too, Iowa State has a pretty large and well-stocked, it's called the Clinical Skills Lab. And so this is an area, it's actually located within the small animal hospital where there are a lot of simulators of all kinds for different clinical skills. So for example, a lot of models where you can practice drawing blood, practice placing IV catheters, practice suturing, practice spay. They make a lot of models out of silicone and things like that. And there are some large animal models too. So that's an area where certain courses, I believe starting in the 2nd year, actually require you to go there for certain periods of time and practice skills in a supervised way. And then it's open all of the time, essentially, for anyone who just wants to go back in and get additional practice with those skills.
I would also say that if you're interested in cardiology or oncology or any of the specialties down in the small animal hospital and potentially the large animal hospital as well, approach those faculty members early. We definitely have students who say, hey, I really just want to see what happens on the clinic floor, what you do on a daily basis. They'll come down and start shadowing, and then sometimes that can work into a job on the clinic floor. We had one of our first years shadow with us all summer last year when we were launching our radiation therapy. And she actually worked with our anesthesiologist to anesthetize every single radiation therapy patient. So she got like one-on-one training with an anesthesiologist for a summer, which is fabulous. And she just took the initiative to come down and say, hey, I'm really interested in this. Can I hang out with you guys? And we said, sure, absolutely. So don't be afraid to approach clinicians and ask them. And, you know, there may be certain times when it's better than others, but we're all really open to having you guys down on the clinic floor as early as possible in your careers if you're interested.
Fantastic. Okay, we do have a couple of questions about pets in veterinary school. So if you guys can kind of weigh in on that, and then we'll probably need to do just one more question after that. So what does having a pet look like in vet school?
I came to vet school, excuse me. I came to vet school with my cat, and then during the 2nd year, kind of around winter, kind of the end of winter break, I adopted a dog. And so a lot of it is just kind of your time management. If you have a dog especially, you got to, you know, organize time to come home, let them out, you know, do whatever, feed them if you feed them 3 times a day. Otherwise, you can kind of do it before you leave and right when you get back from class. And then also, if you do have a pet, is spending some time at home. I know a lot of people, they tend to study only at the school. And so, you know, they'll have class all day, they'll come home, maybe eat dinner, and then go back up to the school until, you know, nighttime, until they're ready to come back. And if you have an animal, you're going to want to spend a little bit more time with them, because otherwise they're going to get kind of sad. But I think the main thing is just taking breaks throughout the day, especially with dogs, to come back and let them out and everything like that.
I'm one of the anomalies who does not have a pet in vet school, which means I get to mooch off of my friends who do. I'm personally just too busy. I study at the school. I'm just not home enough, and I get to use my friends' dogs and my friends' cats, and like that's perfectly fine for me. But it, you know, if you need that companionship, then you can definitely make it work. I have friends who adopted puppies, like itty bitty puppies, and they did just fine during their 4th year, which is crazy. But you can definitely do it.
I also don't have any pets, just because, like Mackenzie, I'm one of those people, I study way better up at school. But kind of touching on people that do have pets, it is really helpful using them as study tools, especially in anatomy. You can, you know, you learn a lot of different landmarks and, you know, different places that you're going to need to know and carry on with you through your clinical years. So like Mackenzie was saying, it's really helpful to borrow your friends' pets to do things like that. But especially if you have your own pets, they're really good learning tools as well.
I can attest to the pet being a good learning tool, because So I have a small breed. He's a toy poodle. So he's, you know, in every lecture that we ever have for certain things, it's like these breeds have these issues, and my dog's always in that list. Um, so just an example, fun story is first year nutrition. We were learning about how diet can influence, you know, the urine and cause urinary crystals and stones. And actually, at the end of the semester, my dog had bladder stones. So it just seemed like I had just learned about it, and then it happened to my dog. So it was a really good learning experience. I ended up learning way more about urinary stones than I probably needed to at that point in time. But it just is kind of cool to also look back at my dog's like blood work from every time he goes to the vet, to kind of see what I can understand from it. And also it's just nice to have something here with you, especially if you live by yourself and if you do have the time. My dog actually I had for several years before I came to vet school. But if you do have the time to keep a pet with you, it's, I would say for me, there's definitely barely any cons and more pros. You just have to make sure that you can, one, time-wise do it, and also financially commit to it, because if you have any unexpected vet bills that might come up, while students do get a discount depending on where you go around here, it can be a very big commitment, especially if they need surgery like my dog did. So.
Great. Okay, we have just a couple of minutes left, and probably, I don't know if we can get all of you answered this to answer this question in just a couple of minutes, but if you have just a minute or two extra to spend with us, one of the questions that I think is really helpful, especially for our audience who are all either admitted students or alternate students, a lot of them will head to vet school somewhere this cycle. So could you maybe share what's one piece of advice that you wish you knew or that you learned first year of vet school that really helped you prepare for veterinary school? So kind of that nugget that you wish you learned, first year that's really helped you, or, that maybe you heard first year that really helped you kind of survive vet school. So it's a big question, I know, and now we only have a minute left because now I talked, but I'm trying to, let you guys brainstorm a little bit as I'm rambling on. So Dr. Ward, it looks like you're ready to go.
I'll go really quick.
Okay.
My best piece of advice is that once you're in vet school, all the people around you are going to be your colleagues and friends for the rest of your life. So you're going to want to help each other to get through this together. And that's the best part of vet school, hands down.
I would definitely say don't put so much pressure on yourself. I definitely did that and really struggled my first year, really just learning new techniques of studying, because I didn't have to really study in undergrad, and that was a very hard adjustment for me. But I'm still here. You can do it. Just, yeah, make sure you're taking care of yourself.
I would just say if you have a question in whatever class it is, rest assured that 30 other people have the same question. So do not be afraid to ask questions. It is not a sign of weakness. And it's very common for students to have kind of coasted through undergrad because this is a really bright population of people. And I watched my husband do it as a classmate. He's a very smart guy. And suddenly he hit pharmacology, like hitting a wall, and suddenly he had to learn how to study, which is hard to do in your second or third year of vet school. So if you have a question, lots of other people have questions too, so ask it. There's no shame in that.
I will kind of second that. I was one of those who didn't really need to study or had really bad study habits in undergrad. I was the guy who was up until 4 a.m. the night before an exam, having just started studying at 8 p.m. But kind of going through vet med, kind of time management and really refining your study habits has been the best thing. As I go through the semesters, I find myself studying less and less, but still getting the same amount. So, and then once you can do that, you can add a bunch of other stuff on top of it that can really expand kind of your knowledge base.
I would also find something that you love to do to make sure that you take time for yourself to get that nice balance. If you want to, as Kieran said earlier, you could study all the time, but you need to have that balance, even if it's just going for a run a couple times a week or going out to brunch with your friends or whatever makes you super happy. Make sure that you make time for that to have that balance. That school's stressful. You'll get through it. It'll be fine. But having that thing that you love to do can be really helpful.
I think remember too that you don't have to be perfect. A lot of people that are coming into vet school and that are in vet school now are, 4.0 students, have never gotten a B on a test or anything like that, really bright people, which is really awesome because you can definitely, learn from studying with those people as well. But if you get a B or a C on a test, it's not the end of the world. You're not going to fail out of vet school. And just remember, you're not just a number, that you're here for a reason, you got your spot for a reason, and that at the end of the day, if you have a 4.0 or a 3.0, you're still going to get your DVM.